G'day and good morning. Today I would like to talk to you about some climate fiction, specifically Tim Winton Juice, also just climate fiction in general. And it's the Michael Christie Greenwood, it's the Richard Powers Overstory and Playground. It's the Charlotte McConaughey Once There Were Wolves. It's that kind of space. In advance, I'm going to apologize for any background noise because there is a bit of bird sound, there is a bit of dog sound, there's a bit of stuff, but I'm going to go through it anyway. This is going to be a pretty raw and unedited kind of little rambling that I have about climate fiction and sort of where I see it going. Climate fiction is not an easy read, it's complicated, and for those of you that don't know what climate fiction is, it's essentially fiction that focuses on climate change, to put it sort of bluntly and simply. Climate change is obviously a thing that's on most of our minds, and we're thinking about how this world is changing and how we're changing and how we are going to have to adapt to this thing. Climate fiction, or cli-fiction, is essentially trying to give us images into what that would be from an empathy level, from a human level, from a landscape level, and from a world level. These authors are researching before, after, during, later, all those things to try to give you a picture of what this could end up being. More specifically, I just finished Juice by Tim Winton, and it wasn't for me, but I found myself coming out of it and reflecting, and my cousin made the comment that it is very sci-fi dystopian, even though it is painting a picture of what the world could be in 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And it's also painting a picture of the world of how certain people are currently living. In that novel, they talk about this idea that during the winters they can come above the surface, and during the summers they have to go underground because those temperatures are roaring into the 50s, and it is impossible to live above ground with temperatures as high as they get. And I think it's become a pretty poignant thing. I'm now back in Australia for a little while, and over this summertime we've sort of had 4 or 5 days that have been in the high 30s and early 40s. And all of those days have been really windy, and it's felt like an oven outside. And I think that's a real shift from when I was a child. I don't ever really remember it being windy, nor do I remember it sitting that high and being that concentrated. And I'm sure it existed because it did, obviously. But I'm wondering what that looks like in the future when all of a sudden that becomes 46 and it's unbearable to be outside. How do people function? How does the world function? How do we function? The novel was challenging, it was slow, and I wanted to give up on it multiple times. And I didn't, mostly because it's Tim Winton, and I've built enough trust in Tim Winton over the years. But I came out of it and went, that wasn't it for me. And I've loved all of these other works, and I think that in itself was the message. The message was, you aren't meant to come out of this novel loving it. You are meant to come out of this novel scared, afraid, and want to change. And that's the shift. Overstory by Richard Powers, a beautiful book. Greenwood by Michael Christie, a beautiful book, but really challenging within their own rights. And they're writing in this space, and saw them speak late last year as they discussed these moments of climate fiction and said out loud the thing that I think a lot of people were thinking, that a lot of people aren't finding a lot of hope in that space. These novels, yes, they come out, yes, they illustrate a point, but within that climate change space, it kind of feels really hopeless at times. And last night, as we were sitting on the picnic rug and we were having pizza with 2 of my best friends and my partner and their little daughter, I did wonder that. I wondered what that looked like for her and what that looks like in our future. We're going to be able to do that in 30 years' time. And the answer is I don't know. But I wanted to get pretty raw and pretty real about this climate fiction space because I think climate fiction has its place, and I think it is teaching us a few things about sort of the empathy track and what it could look like. It's important to recognize that perhaps there are some days where it feels dreadful and you feel lost and you're unsure about this whole thing. But in that same breath, you have to care. We have to care. The world has to care. We unfortunately don't just get to stop caring because we don't want to care about it because it's too hard. And now this Tim Winton novel, as I sort of went through it, I've read 9 Tim Winton novels and I've loved all of them. And I found myself really struggling and really disliking and kind of getting to a point where I was like, do I even want to read this Tim Winton novel? I don't enjoy climate fiction. I find it really hard to view the world through the lens of what it could be one day if we don't change. It's that really like, it's pressing the hammer, it's pressing the nail on the hammer. It's pressing into those trigger points. It's pressing into those tough moments. It's pressing into the thing that we're all thinking but don't have the ability to put into words because it hurts and we have to deal with it and it's our reality. But climate fiction is really valuable and it's important to read that kind of thing. The message, the underlying message of the whole novel is there. If we don't change, this is what's going to happen. If we don't have those moments that allow us to be human and show it through a human lens of what we're all going to be dealing with, everyone's going to be dealing with. And so climate fiction has that empathy piece, it has that understanding piece, and unfortunately, fiction is rooted in truth. There is truth within fiction. If you view it from the right way, if you view it from the right lens, if you view it in a particular way, there is truth within the words that are being written in these pages here. Of course there is, there has to be. This is fiction, but it isn't. In its own breath, there is reality and realness and rawness. And I told you that this would be a really raw, uncut video. And I meant it. At a certain point in time, I want to go deeper into climate fiction, talk about it again. But right now, as I've just finished a climate fiction book, and I'm reeling from the climate fiction book that it made me feel something so deep in here for a character that wasn't really that special, but just an everyday person that was stuck in this world of it being too hot to actually live and was scraping, clawing, and fighting for everything that they got. That is deeply rooted in the reality of truth. There are people that are already doing that. There will be more people in the years to come that will have to do that. And I just wanted to say that there is value in climate fiction. You should read them. You should get uncomfortable. And it is not a bad thing if you don't enjoy those books. And so I'll leave you with this. And we are very fortunate. And I thank you for being here. Remember to be kinder than you think you need to be. And I will see you back here for that next video.